welcome to yet another episode of the Economic Times Cutting Chai Stories, a series of conversations with CXOs over chai or coffee, if that's your preference, brought to you by ET Edge, where we talk about their lives, hobbies, interests, and touch upon various other topics. The urgency and pressure on CXOs as they navigate the COVID-19 pandemic has been immense. And right now, we are in the midst of the second wave. These CXOs have been constantly monitoring myriad ways to ensure that their respective companies stay on course in the new normal. The incredible demands placed on them makes us often wonder how they have time for family, hobbies, or any personal downtime. And let's not forget, they are mere mortals. This initiative by ET Edge is aimed to create a deeper connection with them and to get a sense of what CXOs of several prominent companies do when they are not in CXO mode. Today, I have the pleasure of engaging with Suhail Ghai, Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer, Max Life Insurance. Suhail, welcome to Cutting Chai Stories.
Thank you, Iman, for having me here.
My pleasure. Suhail, let's dive straight into the first question that I have for you. As you know, our generation has witnessed the VUCA world. And for those who are not familiar with the term VUCA, it's volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, with the COVID-19 pandemic being a prime example of that. We've had the first wave, the second wave, and most likely we're headed into the third wave, though I hope not. Suhail, what kind of learnings can be taken forward from this crisis?
So, Ivan, when we started, honestly, when the pandemic started, I think nobody could prepare us for this. And I think nobody was prepared for it. I think over the years, organization built business continuity plans or technology teams build disaster recovery plans. That was always built, that instead of one data center goes down, another one will come in. One site goes down, we'll work from another site. But I think a lot of us and the Indian organizations which were not inherently, mobile and work from home, this was one of its. So I think the biggest lesson was one is to really, expect the unexpected. I think second one was huge amount of resilience we saw in people. And I think that was a biggest learning. Initially, a lot of us were hugely pessimist about what a scenario will unfold like. We saw people coming together. We saw people using, the so-called Indian jugaad. And people could figure out how to make a workforce mobile at a matter of weeks. We also saw how did people rallied together and the consumer behaviors changed. We suddenly, we always say in our business that insurance is sold and not bought, and therefore the physical interaction is very important. But we could see a lot of people, a lot of agents who have spent years in this business trying to rechange the model, trying to develop trust in long-term savings when somebody is making investment, doing that remotely without having a face-to-face interaction. And I think the human spirit, resilience, and also one big learning is it is not over in one go. So I think the biggest learning for us from phase 1 to phase 2 is that you prepare and it comes back. I think it will come back, and this is something which we will have to learn with. So how do you structurally change things and learn to live with something? I think that's one of the biggest learnings we will have.
Right. I think the key word is learning to live with it, because it seems we are in for the long haul here. Well, thanks for your insights. Suhail, how would you describe your leadership style? I think you've been in leadership roles prior to this, if I'm not mistaken, with PepsiCo, is it? And L'Oreal, if I'm not mistaken. So how would you describe your leadership style and how has it evolved over the years?
I think I was fortunate enough to work with some of the amazing leaders as part of my career. And I think over a period of time, I have learned your leadership style, the best leadership style is having an adaptive leadership style. I think it is very, very important because not each of your teammates will be on the same level. There will be people who would be probably top of their game. They will have required experience. And with them, you would rather nurture them and empower them. You will empower them to grow and to be much more independent. Then there would be people are just taking for them maybe the first leadership position or first and then a new role on a larger role, and there you may have to nurture them.
Sure.
And therefore you are different. There will be situations where you're going through a tough phase and some of your team member may not be intuiting on top of it. And hence, even to the risk of doing micromanagement, but you will have to work with somebody and immerse yourself and get your hands dirty. So I think my learning over a period of time is that you need to be adaptable. Not all team is, and not all circumstances are same. Like in COVID, many of us had crossed our sleeves, worked with the teams because there was no template. And I think, and therefore I think adaptive leadership is one of the best learnings I have in my career.
Wonderful. Uh, Please take us through the highs and lows of your career, uh, and the learnings thereof from them.
I'll first start with some of the highs of my career. I think one of my, if I look back at my career, where the high was one of first time I was a management trainee, just confirmed as a full time employee when I was at L'Oreal, and suddenly I was told to work on a project directly with the CEO of the company. And it really meant a bit different for a management trainee because suddenly meant that you are on your own. You can't go ask your about your boss what vacations, and suddenly you will have to start working with people who are much more senior than you. And I think it was a great experience for me. It was experience which taught me to take my own decisions, which taught me a figure of collaboration, ability to go somebody who may be senior than you, knock on his door, try to do alignments without having to, every time go to your boss, which, when you're very young, you look for validations. I think that was a big learning. We did this project. It was a rollout of a sales automation solution along with the distributors at L'Oreal. That was one of my first thing. The second big one was that when we implemented a very large global SAP at L'Oreal, it was a big one because first time I worked internationally, people with different culture, and for whom there were very different ways how to look at work-life balance, how to look at work, the excellence. Sometimes in India, which because we prefer quantity over quality a lot of times, and they have a different learning for me. How could you deliver a complex project having various stakeholders with different? They were coming from different places. And I think that was a big one. The third one was ability to do a hugely technical project, which was at my Pepsi. I was always a business IT guy, doing a hugely technical project, a global transformation, which we did. Again, people from 4 different continents, working on a new business model, a new technology, and being able at that in that time, I suddenly from being a very large team, which we used to in India, I was down to having only 1 or 2 DRs, and virtually worked in outsourced population vendors. I think that was another big learning. And finally, in terms of high, was the one when, as I was always a technology guy, when I led a business transformation project at PepsiCo, where we changed the way we do trade in India with much more in a formal economy. Doing balance transfers, Aadhaar authentication of the millions of mom and pop stores, which we did. So I think that these are all learnings which probably worked with me on the highs of my career. In terms of lows, I think I have learned from lows. Lows are much more important. One
Sure.
big low was that um, we were doing this large asset project, which I told you in middle of the project, the entire business organization changed. There were new stakeholders. Some of them were initially not aligned to the project. So, you had to stop the project. A lot of people had built their careers on the project. There were people from our partners, IBM of the world who were in that project. So how do you work with them? Individual aspirations. Again, the project got stalled. You didn't know what to do with people. You had attrition, flight risk. And in midst of that, the biggest learning was how do you bind people together? How do you create a, so we use that time to upskill our people, to train our people. We use the time to get the new stakeholders, bringing them up the curve and making them realize why the project is so important. I think that was the one big learning because initially the whole project got stalled. So I think the other big one was when we again in the same project we said when we were doing a very complex transition, which was a multi-country transition for a technology transformation project at PepsiCo. The phase first time it did not go right. In just few hours before getting into cutover and go live, you had to call off the whole thing. So people had started flying from other countries to come to India to celebrate the go live, and then when the people ended, you had to go and tell them we are not doing today, so we are arranging your flights back. The big
Right.
learning, there was that when things happen, to take it in your stride, to plan, don't get dejected, plan what is in your hand. to again plan and get it right the next time. I think we did that. There were a couple of low
Excellent.
points from them.
Excellent. Thank you for tabling them. I'm sure there are great takeaways for all of us listening in. Given that we are now facing the second wave of the pandemic, and like I said in my introduction, I hope that there's no third wave, but indications are that there will be. How has the work from home dynamic been affected? And largely because work from home is a term for most people, but there are so many aspects to work from home, and I'm sure you'll be able to enumerate on that. How has it changed now, given that we're into the second wave, and how do you see that panning out going forward?
I think when the first wave started and when the lockdown hit us, that was the most difficult time because that was the first time a lot of Indian companies, at least, which
Sure.
really experimented and had to live with structural work from home for longer periods of time. And I
Yes.
think we all learned our lessons for the first few months. First month, I think in a matter of week, we were up. In the matter of months, 1 or 2 months, our business was up. And then we took a lot of time to learn the new muscle, which is how do you engage people remotely. So we could, we ran virtual, and I saw leaders running virtual webinars. We using solutions like Workplace by Facebook and Zoom to have a lot of connects. We even used to have connects between the families because families extended part of the home. I'm sure each one of our spouses and children listen to the same conversation, and therefore that virtual engagement became very, very important.
Sure.
Second, look at performance management in the perspective of remote working. It's no longer the guy sitting in front of you. It is not about number of hours he put in. How do you empower people more? How do you now look at output and not the input? I think those were the areas which became very important. Now
Sure.
I think it was broadly at for us. By the time phase one ended, we all were very clear that we will leverage this opportunity and create a hybrid, altogether hybrid way of working for future. So we never thought we will return early. But yes, there were people who always said that let's see what happens. Maybe we all come back. I think this wave two has finally even put those even naysayers to rest. And now I think the jury is out. This is something I think a lot of us understand whether wave three will come, doesn't come. This is something we will have to live with this. And therefore things like social distancing, things like working from anywhere, and more and more this will become an issue of micro containment zones. You may have some people who may not be able to travel. Therefore, how do you create a mobile work for which is mobile, can work from anywhere, and also this hybrid way of working, which I say, some people in office, some people out of office, distributed teams. I think that becomes the most important part. I think this wave two of pandemic has actually now proven to all of us that's the way to go.
Great. I really like the insights that you table because, like I said, work from home is a term, but there are various dynamics to this. And I think you table most of them, and I think you're taking care of all of them in your organization. Great. Suhail, with that, we come to the next section, which is a very interesting section, which is called the one word, one line answer. What will happen here is that I will ask you a few questions. Your answer should be either in one word or in one line only. If it's 3 words or 2 words, I will specify that. So it's going to be a fun session. Are you ready for it?
Absolutely.
Great. Okay. I know we've been confined to our houses for a long time, our families too, but which is your favorite holiday destination?
Maldives.
Okay. Favorite sport?
Cricket.
Okay. If you were to lose one of the following, would you rather lose the ability to read or lose the ability to speak?
Ability to read.
Okay. If you could start a charity, what would it be for?
To create health infrastructure in this country.
What is the craziest thing you have done, Suhail, thus far in your life?
I won't use the word helping. Mentoring somebody who came on a 4,000-5,000 rupee temporary salary from a vendor partner in one of the organizations I work for.
Okay.
Finally, mentoring him to study study or a higher education, then taking him on board, and he becoming a senior resource. And one day, that same company gave him a car allowance. So I think that's the best I could do to somebody.
Okay, wonderful. Suhail, if you could know the absolute and total truth to one question, what question would you ask?
Is there life after death?
Wonderful. Very nice. Next question. Would you rather be unable to use search engines or unable to use social media?
I would prefer to use, I'm unable to use social media. I would prefer to use search engines.
Search engines. Yeah, got it. What makes you happy?
Just being with the people whom you like, friends, family.
Okay. When it comes to people who are a part of your team, or who you would like to be part of your team, or people in general, what would you go for? High EQ or high IQ?
High EQ.
Okay. What's a body part you wouldn't mind losing? That's a tricky one.
I think speech. Because you can still do many other things. You can still live your
I asked my wife this as a test question yesterday, and she said the fat around my midriff. I had to warn her that that's not a body part. What's something your brain tries to make you do, and you have to will yourself not to do it?
Stay very late. Stay up very late.
Okay. What outdoor activity haven't you tried but would like to?
I would love to do a bungee jumping someday.
Wonderful. Do you prefer or let me put it this way, do you believe in planning your life or letting things just happen?
I think climbing my life. I can't say letting things happen because I'm a little too impatient for that.
Okay. If you could live in anyone's head for 15 minutes, who would you choose?
I would love to be in the head at this moment of the Minister of this country. To understand Prime Minister of this country, Mr. Modi, to really see how is he thinking to combat this pandemic.
Sure. Last question for this segment. Kindly complete this sentence. Life is incomplete without
a specific aim in life.
Sure. Great. You did very well in this segment. Well done. One final question before we wrap up. If you were the IT head, the Chief Technology Officer of India, what is one thing you would do?
I would first create a kind of a tracking mechanism for all the medical equipment coming into this country. How do you barcode or put a real-time tag to it so that you can start scanning? Because and millions of concentrators are coming in, cylinders are coming in. You don't know what. So I think if I could use technology like active tags, tag all of these guys, and they're going to be smart tags. To figure this out, what is where, so that at least that so-called the artificial impediments like coding and other things, we can work around and ensure that these things reach people.
Absolutely. Well said. So on that note, I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of the Economic Times and ETH to thank you, Suhail, for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Suhail Ghai, Executive Vice President and Chief Technology Officer, Max Life Insurance. I had a great time, and I hope you did too.
Yes, same. Thank you, everyone, for having me.
Thank you.